Welcome RVers, I'm Claire from Unique Camping and Marine, and this is Chris, our certified RV technician. The RV community is full of amazing people who love to share tips and tricks. Some of those tips and tricks are really great, some of them not so much. And those not so great tips and tricks can lead to RV woes.
What? When it comes to a lot of these myths which we're going to be discussing, a lot of the times it comes down to correlation versus causation. A lot of the time you might think that you're following along with a hack and getting good results from it, when in practice, it is the things that you're doing around that hack that are actually resulting in good habits and good solutions. We've been professionals in the wastewater industry for over 30 years and have put each one of these to the test.
Let's debunk these myths.
Pine sol keeps your poop solid in the holding tank.
You've probably heard from tank cleaning services that if you were to add pine sol to your black water holding tank, that it will somehow keep your solid waste solid. The truth of the matter is that when you add poop to any liquid, water, pine sol, pretty much anything else, it will naturally break down of its own accord. Pine sol has no binding agents and it has not ever claimed to hold waste together. If you're dumping your tank and you happen to see some solid waste slide past your clear elbow, that's most likely because it is a fresh deposit which was just put in there and has not had any time for the water to break it down. Again, pine sol will not hold together waste in any way, shape, or form.
The Geo Method works.
One of the longest standing myths out there is the Geo Method. We've all heard that this is the best way in order to keep your holding tank trouble-free and flowing the way which it should, and that it's a cheap alternative to holding tank treatments. But the truth of the matter is this: it does not allow any waste to slide out of the holding tank like a slip and slide, and in fact it is not cheap at all either. Buying all of these chemicals and mixing them together is essentially just a recipe for wasting money. We've tested this thoroughly, the internet has tested this thoroughly. It just simply does not hold up against an actual holding tank treatment.
You have to use RV-specific toilet paper.
When it comes to the RV toilet paper debate, you've got a couple of options here. You can either use an uncomfortable single-ply toilet paper which is overpriced and similar feel to what you would find at a truck stop, or you can use whichever toilet paper you choose. If you choose the second option, then all that you have to do in order to ensure that this works correctly is use a high-quality holding tank treatment and plenty of water. As a side note, you should never flush flushable wipes down an RV toilet. They even say so on the back, so don't do it.
You can put baking soda in your black tank to eliminate odors.
A lot of people have stated that if you put some baking soda into the black water holding tank, that it will eliminate odor. While there is some science behind this, the science is usually done in a lab and not in a black water holding tank. Simply sprinkling some baking soda into the black tank will not eliminate odor. If you're looking to eliminate odor, simply use water. More water will cover the waste and will create a vapor barrier in between the black tank and the rest of the RV.
You can't poop in your RV toilet.
RV manufacturers put toilets in RVs on purpose. You're allowed to poop in them. So long as you follow the correct steps, you should have no problem pooping in an RV toilet. We go into a lot of depth on this in the new RVer series, so be sure to check all of that out.
Ice will clean your holding tank and fix your sensor problems.
Ice in the holding tank. Boy, this was a fun one. I got to drive around like a madman with ice inside of a holding tank trying to clean off the various sensors inside of there. And I can tell you this much, even though I drove like a lunatic, I wasn't able to get the toilet paper off of the sensors again. Why doesn't this work? It's because as you have ice sitting inside of room temperature liquid, it starts to melt immediately. And the amount of ice which is inside of there is never enough to actually scrape things off of the wall. Personally, I love ice, just not in a holding tank. I take it in a stiff drink.
You should never leave your gray tank valve open.
It is perfectly fine to leave your gray water holding tank valve in the open position if you're at a full Hookups campground. We do recommend that you put a P-trap bend in the sewer discharge hose with some water in it, and this should stop anything from making its way back inside of the RV. Genuinely, there's no problem with keeping your gray valve open.
Your black tank valve can be left open on Hookups.
Under no circumstances should you leave your black water holding tank valve in the open position at a full Hookups campground. You're going to want to keep the black water holding tank valve closed at all time unless you are dumping the tank. If you leave it open, all of the liquid will run out of the tank, leaving only behind the waste and the toilet paper. This will almost certainly lead to a pyramid plug, and you do not want that.
Your tank rinser works.
Rinsing your black water holding tank after dumping is always a great idea. However, just running a tank rinser with the valve open may not achieve what you're expecting it to. We highly recommend keeping the black water holding tank valve closed while you are using the tank rinser, and the reason for this is that the tank rinser is not as effective as you think that it is when it comes to spraying down the inside of the tank. What you're trying to achieve here is you're trying to fill the tank up with as much water as possible to wash out the things which were left behind from the initial dump. Simply running a tank rinser with the black valve in the open position will only get a very small amount off, whereas filling it up will get a much larger amount out of the tank.
I rarely have to rinse my black tank.
You may have heard that you only need to rinse your black water holding tank occasionally. But let me tell you, your life will be much easier if you rinse your black water holding tank after every single dump. Rinsing is important because when you dump the contents of the black water holding tank, there is most certainly left behind solid waste and paper which did not get flushed out with the initial dump. There are also ledges and corners inside of the black water holding tank where waste can get left behind and trapped unless it is rinsed.
All holding tank treatments are the same, and you should have a hands-off approach to black tanks.
People have said that all holding tank treatments are the same, and this is patently false. There are many holding tank treatments on the market right now which do not do anything to break down waste, eliminate odors, and maintain working sensors. All holding tank treatments are not created equal. We recommend using one which is based on the gold standard of holding tank treatment, which is bacteria and enzyme-based treatment. This will actually break down waste and eliminate odors, as well as maintaining working sensors.
Water isn't that important in your black tank.
You might be tempted to reserve as much water as possible, especially if you were dry camping. However, this is not a very good idea at all. The reason why you want to use as much water as possible in your black water holding tank is it will keep the waste underwater, which will allow for an odor barrier, and it will also allow for bacteria and enzymes to replicate and break down waste. Saving on water is a good idea in certain circumstances, but not when it comes to your black water holding tank. We also recommend that you fill your toilet bowl partially full with water every time that you use it in order to allow for, again, a greater vapor barrier between the RV and the black tank, and then also an ability to wash the waste into the holding tank.
Sensors never work. Just live with it.
Many people will tell you that RV sensors are simply not worth the struggle and to just ignore them completely. But in fact, RV sensors do work, and they just need a little bit of maintenance as far as making sure that they are consistently reading correctly. All that you need to do is make sure that you're using something which is breaking down waste so it is no longer left behind on the inside walls of the RV, which might cover up a sensor. Rinsing will also help you immeasurably here. There are certainly times where the sensors themselves or the wiring associated with it is actually broken. If you are having troubles with RV sensors in general, feel free to reach out to us. We've helped thousands of people who have had problems with their RV sensors and gotten them working again.
You need to purchase lubricant for your toilet gasket.
Using an RV lubricant for your toilet gasket is not a necessity whatsoever. If you are using plenty of water and cleaning your RV's toilet bowl, then you can save your money and just skip the purchase of that product.
Holding tanks are not septic tanks. Don't treat it with products.
Holding tanks are not septic tanks. You are correct. They are not septic systems. Septic systems have very long amounts of time to allow for waste to break down naturally. RV holding tanks do not. We recommend dumping a holding tank after only 3 to 5 days. So by using a high quality holding tank treatment, you will be aiding in the breakdown of waste in a much shorter amount of time than you would ever need in a septic system. Again, let us reiterate, holding tanks are not septic systems. We agree.
So what you're saying, Chris, is that a lot of RVers think that these tips and tricks are fixing problems, but they're not actually doing the job.
That's right. In a lot of these cases, it doesn't take magic or hacks to get a clean and trouble-free holding tank. Really, all that it comes down to is using lots of water, rinsing thoroughly, and then using a high-quality holding tank treatment in order to get the results which you're looking for. As straightforward as all of this sounds, I've got a feeling this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers around the RVing community. But our goal here was to shed light on what's actually happening inside of the Blackwater holding tank versus leaving it up to myths and speculations. But if you've got anything which you disagree with in this, prove us wrong.
Sounds like quite the challenge. This is the last video in our new RVer series. So if you're new here, we have a whole playlist of videos like this to help you remove the stress and worry around your RV wastewater systems. And if you have any questions, just let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.